Hello everybody and welcome to my second recording of my Thor guide. So I just did a full recording, just did a full 40 minutes, and then I realized I had the build order up on the recording stream the entire time. So we did have the build order showing the entire time I was in gameplay here. So we're going to go ahead and re-record this one, no worries. And I did realize I did go a bit long in the previous recording. So I think this is a good reset. Let's go ahead and try this one again. So today we're talking about Thor. I think Thor is very interesting. There's a lot to talk about here, but my goal in this video is to talk about what makes Thor unique, what his strengths and weaknesses are, and then talk about a build order that I've been using to play Thor, primarily in team games, but I believe is viable in solo games as well. So let's just take a quick look at Thor here and talk about his special upgrades. And then before we talk about the upgrades, I think this makes more sense to talk about first. Let's talk about where Thor sits inside of the Pantheon. So with the other Norse gods, Odin, Loki, and Freyr, what you come to expect inside of skirmish matches is that they're going to have a lot of early aggression on your base, and they all have clear pathways to do that. Odin, we've got bonus hunt to get more units out, we get bonus favor to get more units out, and then we have map hacks to look for opportunities to harass and put pressure on the opponents. Loki is basically the same. We've got the same type of units with an emphasis on Herser instead, but early strong units that can push forward, and map hacks to look for vulnerabilities in the opponent's base. So a lot of early aggression. And at this point, I think most people who have played 20-30 games have experienced at least once Freyr rushing Classical Age, dropping an Asgardian Bastion near your primary base, getting a second town center, and looking for that aggression early on in the game. So when you play versus Norse, you think aggression is coming. Thor is a bit different. I don't think Thor is an early aggressor. I think you do need to play this god a lot differently than the other Norse pantheon, and I do think that's what makes him unique, and it's why I'm really interested in learning the best way to play Thor. We haven't seen a ton of him. There's not a lot of games of Thor on the ladder. I do think he is a little weak right now, but we're still early. Things are going to get patched, so let's just go ahead and dive into Thor. So here's his bonuses. Starts with dwarfs instead of gatherers. This is really great. And I'm actually going to pause here and let's pull up the gather rates and talk about this. So what you see on the left is a dwarf's role. Dwarfs can either hunt, herd, forage, farm, lumberjack, or gold mine. And you can see Thor's dwarfs versus regular dwarfs for each of these activities. Gold mining is the same, but in every other activity, they gather much faster than regular dwarfs. In fact, they almost gather as fast as gatherers. So if we look at the hunter, if we have a Thor dwarf hunting, we've got a 0.92 gather rate. If we have a regular forager hunting, not an Odin forager, a regular forager, we have a 0.95 gather rate. It's a 0.03 difference. They are really close, and it's the same for the rest of these numbers. The dwarfs are basically as good as a gatherer at gathering other resources outside of gold. So I'll leave those up if anyone wants to take a quick screenshot or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and drop them down. Let's go back to Thor here. All right, so let me hide all of these. That's the build order. That's a preview, but let's get back to Thor. So we start with the dwarves instead of gatherers. Dwarves cost minus 10 gold. It's pretty nice. I honestly don't use it that much because I find I don't need to purchase dwarfs that often, but if you do have extra gold you're floating and not enough food, you can switch to dwarfs pretty easily here. Dwarven Armory can be built and research upgrades in every age. So the Dwarven Armory is also cheaper. They don't mention that here, but it is only 90 wood versus the 150. And you can build it right at the start of the game. So we can get those upgrades early. Now here's the big one that to me makes Thor the economy boosting civilization in the Norse pantheon. You receive a free dwarf for each Dwarven Armory upgrade researched. And you'll see in my build order, we get 2 of these in the Archaic Age, very first age. So we get 2 extra villager units out in the first age that other civs don't have access to. So already a slight economic boost there, not to mention that the dwarfs gather faster other resources, so that's an economic boost as well. And then this last one here can research 3 extra Dwarven Armory upgrades. I haven't used this, if I'm being completely honest. I think it'd have to be a very late team game. It could happen, and these additional upgrades that you get, they do cost about the same as the Mythic Age upgrades. They don't keep scaling up, so that is nice. I could see there being use to get those, but to be honest, I haven't had many games where I get that far, but it is nice if you get there. For his god power, we have Dwarven Mine, and I think this is an A tier starting god power. I think people really underrate this one, especially with the new AOM Retold changes in the recastability of this. I've had several situations where I'm not ready yet to expand to a different gold mine. My opponent is pressuring me off of it, but I can just drop this right under my town center, and it even gathers faster than a regular gold mine, and you already have the dwarfs to get onto the gold mine. So it's really strong. We use it at the very start, and you can recast this. Hammer of Thunder. This tech is good in itself. You know, it's only 100 gold, 5 favor. Your Herser get plus 15% damage, and then it doubles the favor rate that they generate. So again, that goes back to the recastability of Dwarven Mine. We're getting more favor, we're getting more cast of this, we're getting gold quicker, really strong economy boost here. And the other benefit of Hammer of Thunder is that you can research this in the Dwarven Armory. So we also get a free dwarf for this. So really, if you take out the 60 gold that it costs Thor to build a dwarf, this tech is 40 gold, 5 favor. In order to get a huge buff to your Herser. So really strong there. And the other thing to talk about, so I do typically go for Foresti, and that is partially because of the Dwarven Breastplate, another tech in the Dwarven Armory, another one you get a free dwarf out for, and it's also quite strong. Minus 25% vulnerability to hack, very strong classical age buff. I kind of think it's hard to miss in this build order. With other civs like Odin and Loki, I believe, right? No, just Odin and Freyr, right? Have access to the Valkyrie, but I don't think you want to do this as Thor. One, we're going to be aging up a little bit later than those other civs, and we're also going to be building our temple in our base, not in a forward base. So this Valkyrie is going to get to the opponent's base a minute and a half later than if we were to rush it, and I don't think you're getting the same value. And the rest of the tech I don't think is that good. The only one that's decent is this one, but I really think you got to skip that for both Dwarven Breastplate and Hall of Thanes. You know, this tech itself is also incredible. The Troll is great for early defense, especially the way we're going to play, and Healing Springs is great as well. And then just quickly, you know, I typically go Battle Boars. I do like the Call of Valhalla buff for the army that we're going to have. We don't do a lot of throwing axemen. This tech is great, but I do think having the siege unit, flaming weapons, which is incredibly good on Thor's army, and the Call of Valhalla, I think these make it worth it. And we even have an extra Herdman buff if we need to use it versus cavalry. So I definitely think Battle Boar is better. Mythic Age, I don't think it matters. I think if you made it at this point, you probably won the game if you can drop a Fimbulwinter and get huge buffs to infantry. Or, you know, with the economy we're going to have, it's hard to imagine a point where you get to this, you know, this age and you don't have enough of a Ragnarok army to just end the game. So I think both options are fine. Not a lot to talk about there. All right, so let's look at the build order really quick. Pull that up. So here's our build order, and I did the same sort of format. And please let me know in the comments any notes or any suggestions for build order format. This is what makes sense to me, but I am open to feedback to improve these to make them more readable. But what I did is I put together the resource cost that we need, and then that helps derive how we're going to allocate our villagers. So what we're going to need to purchase is a temple, Dwarven Armory, which costs less, it's only 90 wood, 2 houses, likely 2 ox carts. You can get away with 1 on certain maps in certain games. We're going to get copper shields, we're going to get copper armor, and then copper weapons is optional, so we don't necessarily need to get it in the classical age. If you're facing another booming civ, I would recommend getting this in the classical age. The big thing that's kind of different in other AoE RTSs or other RTSs, you know, Age of Mythology is unique in the fact that when you're aging up, you can't produce villagers from your town center. So one of the things that I think is understated in this game is the power of delaying that age up to get more units out so that you have faster production immediately after aging. And I think the Norse Pantheon in particular are really good at this because your military units can continue to build military buildings and cycle out that way rather than needing your villagers to go do that. So just something to call out about the later age up time. But you can see we're still aiming to get up at before 5 minutes. So it's definitely respectable, and we're going to be prepared for early pressure. So for the build order, and I'm going to do it live on this recording, we're going to send 2 dwarfs to Wood with Ox, 1 dwarf to the Dwarven Gold Mine, which we're going to summon. We're going to pull the Hunt or build an Ox cart if we need to, but if we can pull the Hunt, we're going to do that with our Berserker. And then we're sending all new villagers to food. And that continues on, and I've basically outlined the different timestamps that I'm aiming to get my copper shields out, that I'm aiming to get my temple out, that I'm aiming to get copper armor out, and what the villager counts should look like at that point. For wood and gold vills, those will always be dwarfs. And then for the food vills, that will always be gatherers. So we're just going to flex the dwarfs between those two resources, makes it really easy inside of the build order. So now I'm going to correctly minimize this build order before I actually start playing the game here, because that's what I did on the last recording. So let's get that out of here, and let's close this out. I've got a map set up here, so let me resign. Actually, I'm not going to resign, but this is one of the maps that I like this build order on, because each of the bases has a pretty defensible area. So I just loaded this up, and we're going to go ahead and do this on the stream. Alright, we'll get our dwarfs out there, cast our mine, we'll get one dwarf out to the mine, and then we're going to get our berserker out to the hunt, and we'll pull that guy in. And if your dwarfs start attacking it, just stop them. You don't need them. Get the hunt. And then first thing I'm going to do is build my dwarven armory to defend my tower. And we actually have a bit of downtime here now. So the first bit is a little quick, but we do have some downtime. Key thing, you don't want to get the hippos if you're pulling them right next to the town center. You do want a slight gap. This is probably a little further than I would want, but you don't want to get right up because villagers get stuck. It's kind of a problem with this game right now. But with the downtime, what I like to do is get my dwarfs queued up to the next tree. I like to get my dwarven armory pointed to the dwarven gold mine, and then I typically will queue up a house here, and you'll see why. Because with this build order, we have to do one manual drop off at least. We've got 45 food. Villagers aren't going to drop off until they've filled up, and it would stall production. So we do have to do that, and that's why I usually just queue the house so I can focus on this, make sure we don't make a mistake. And sometimes you may have to do it the second time. It just depends on how the villagers play out, how the hunt was pulled in. There's a bit of factors. So I do just keep an eye on it, and then you see there, I just made sure I don't get stalled out, and now we can go scout. And I did miss this. I missed it. But the second this gets built, we want to upgrade copper shields. So I'm a little late there. It's not going to impact timings, I don't think, but the second that gets built, you want to get copper shields out. And we're just going to do a little scouting. Got some goats. And I'm going to pull the next hunt because we are getting low on the first one. And again, we just want to drag that pretty close to the town center, but not right on it. And that one got away. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull my ox cart over right now, and we'll fix that. So that's the flexibility you have. Keep these guys on wood, and we'll keep scouting. So you can make mistakes as long as you're ready to, fix them on the fly. And the ox cart gives you that flexibility. And now that we're down to pretty much just one hippo, we're going to pull another. I generally try and keep 2 of these big hunts at once. And we'll try and get this guy close to the TC. And there we go. And now that we've got that, we'll get our temple up. So I think I'm timing out pretty well here. Dwarfs are still cutting. Everyone's still gathering. We got this back on the base, which is nice. And let's go ahead and get our next upgrade out. And you can see I'd get this out a bit earlier typically if I had gotten copper shields first, because we would have got the dwarf out earlier. So this should be a couple seconds faster than what we're getting here, maybe 5 seconds faster. Just depends on how the dwarfs are going. And I could even do a forced drop off if I need to. Get this guy up to 8. Let's do a forced drop off. We can do that. We've got our house up, and let's keep scouting. Let's see what else is out on this map. Want to cover our whole bases. Villagers are all still working. It is good to validate. And now we're getting pretty close to age up. So let's pause. Quickly talk about the build order. I believe the build order had a goal of, was it 345? Let's pop that back up really quick. Yeah, we've got about 335 is about when we need to start reallocating our villagers. So you can see we only have 240 food, but we have 12 villagers on food. So it's likely that we're pretty close to 400 at this point. So we just want to keep an eye on it in this period after 3 minutes. Get your scout out, auto click them around, and then let's keep an eye on our villagers so that we can get that age up going. So go ahead and hide that back, get back into the game, keep gathering, and now we need another hippo. And you can see kind of why we want to have 2 of these going at once is because of the time that it takes for these villagers to walk around each other. So this works out all right. We're scouting. We did find our natural expansion, which is great. That's what we want. And now you can see I hit the timer here. So we're going to drop that. And what I do is I get out on the far hunt right away. And we're going to get our dwarfs here. Get this dwarf working. And we'll leave just 2 villagers on food right here. Maybe 3, just finish up those hippos, and then we're going to get these guys, make sure they go on wood. So the double click kind of messing with me there. And then we're going to queue these up. And the reason we want to go so heavily on wood here is because we're going to need production. And you can kind of see, I'm going to get a house here, protect this hunt. That's how you want to use your houses, is you want to keep protecting hunt. I'm going to do, let's see, I wanted this drop off to go through because I want to get a Herser out very quickly here. So I'm going to drop off that. And let's get a Herser out. And we're going to send him to defend our hunt, basically. So now we've got that house built. I want to get my guy in position to start walling off another part of this base. So let me pause really quick and talk about that. So the opponent just aged up. This is the Titan AI. You know, I did want a controlled environment, but I did pick the attacker Titan AI. So we should get some early pressure here so I can show how to handle that early pressure. The first big thing I did to handle that early pressure is I got out onto the hunt outside of my base early. And we're going to have to pull back at some point here. So maybe we'll finish all of this hunt, and then we can come here and get some of this, and then we have to pull back to our berries and chicken. But it is better to get out here first, because we will hit a point in this game where we have to hide in our base. It's almost inevitable. We're going to have a lesser mass of units, and we do value our units more. The big thing about Thor is we have these armory upgrades. We already have 2, so our units are tankier than the regular Norse units. And as we age up, we're going to pick up a couple more upgrades with it. So you'll see the units are actually quite strong. But I just wanted to call out why we're out on the hunt there. And then I'm bringing this guy down here so that he can start to defend our wood line through building a longhouse. So we'll get that up. Another Herser in queue. And I'm actually going to use this Herser to get a house out really quick because I don't expect aggression yet. I'll get my troll out here. Just queuing those up. So Herser's out building. I made another mistake here, so you do have to check when your gold mine's going to run out to make sure your dwarfs get back on here. Let's go ahead and get this upgrade. It's cheaper, it just costs gold, so we'll get that one first, and we do have mostly Hersers. And I do recommend spamming more Hersers than Berserkers early on. And let me go ahead and get a wall here. And this is basically what I'm doing, is I'm building production buildings and then just little walls enough to fit a gate. And that's all the gold we want to spend on the walls. It's just enough to get a gate inside of there. So that way we can have a pretty compact defended base early on like that. So now, since we're almost out of our hippos here, I'm going to go ahead and get our second ox cart going. And then we're also going to go ahead and send these villagers to food to wood after they're done with this, because we don't want to chop through our entire wood line. Is pretty key. We want to keep this wood line here. It's part of our defensive structure, but we do have plenty of wood line to keep, you know, bouncing around on without chopping all the way through. So something just to keep an eye out on. And let's go ahead and finish closing off our base on this side. We'll get 2 houses. We'll get a gate. Just make sure it's long enough to get a gate in there. We're getting units out. This guy came over here. Let's get another production building on this side. And then we'll do the same thing, just enough to get a gate. It's only 21 gold for the wall. And here's the point of the game, you know, 6 minutes is where I would be worried about an army of aggression. Before this, we may be worried about a Valkyrie or something, but that's why I have my troll and a Herser out here, because we can handle that. And maybe we have to run our villagers to the gate, but they should be able to get there in time, especially if we've got an army. So I'm going to keep pulling guys back now. We've got our base infrastructure. We're all defended, you know, after this is finished. So we're good to just keep pulling our army up. And from here, you just want to be spamming units. So I'll get a couple of herdmen out. You know, we want to keep getting Hersers out. You can see we're floating a bit of wood here. And what I recommend if you're doing that is just get production buildings out. You know? And I'm actually going to go ahead and push these zebra a bit further away so that we get closer to the base, a bit safer. And I've got a feeling that we're going to get some aggression here, so I'm going to just pull back a little bit. And then let's go ahead and we can maybe wall off this hunt a bit, provide that a bit more safety there. I'll keep a couple of units up here just with my villagers. That's what we want. That's what we care about, to keep them safe. We can keep getting our upgrades there. At this point, we've got plenty of wood, so I'm going to flex these dwarfs over to gold. You know, we don't need to keep cutting the wood here. We've got a good wood production up there, and I think it's time to start shifting back to food so we can get more units out. We're going to keep producing. If you produce too many from one, we want to keep getting them out. So we've got our army here. And we haven't explored a ton of the map. I do see a relic. I guess I should grab that. What we got? Buildings constructed faster. That actually could have been quite good early in this game. Looks like someone got pulled there that was supposed to finish that. But we'll just keep our army here. We'll keep getting Herser out. We'll keep getting Berserkers out. We'll keep getting our armory improvements out. And we should be in a pretty good position when fighting starts. So we got the gate there. Keep pumping. Keep pumping. Keep pumping. I'll get the upgrade for my Herser. Help them out. We're almost done with this hunt, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pull over. This hunt's a lot safer for us. And now that we're going down to this hunt, we can migrate where we're building our infrastructure down here, and we can start to look to secure this gold. We don't want to get housed, so let's go get some houses up, and I'll go ahead and get a house here. I'll get a house here, and then let's go ahead and just get a wall here. Let's just protect this area. And we've got, this isn't impacting our economy, right? Because we have the extra dwarfs, we have the extra units. Let's just get some defenses up here. I don't know why you didn't drop that off. Let's drop that off. And we're all covered. I don't know why this villager's chopping there. We'll move them up over here. We're getting pretty close to chopping through this, so I'm just going to move them down there. Let's just not chop through it, you know? And then here, we'll just keep these guys focused on the hunt. Get our gates up. And let's go ahead and just get this area enclosed as well. And these are nice cheap walls, you know, and the goal of these walls isn't to stop them from getting in, it's to slow it down so we can get our army in place. The troll is very slow. We're going to have a healing springs drop somewhere. So we just want to get this in a decent position, and let's get our upgrade for that. And then here they are. So now you can see this gives us a chance to get our army together. Let's go ahead and stop this house, and let's take this engagement. And I am going to go ahead and drop healing springs here. I'm going to get my herdmen on the cavalry. I'm going to pull my Herser, and let's go look for the Cyclops. And you can see the healing springs helping keep us defensive. Looks like we're going to get some pressure on the troll. We can just run him around a little bit while our infantry take him out. And we'll probably lose the troll. Let's just get him a shot out now. Okay, we lose the troll, but, you know, let's pause here. This was the Titan AI attacker. And you can see, I've still got a unit here. I've still got a unit here. I've still got a unit here. I think that's it. I've got a unit here. So I'm missing 4 of my military from that fight. And it wasn't really close. That was a stomp. And I know it's the AI, and maybe they wouldn't have focused the building, but that is what you do with Cyclops usually. But this is the kind of thing that's been happening in games, is you get some early pressure, but because you've built out this infrastructure here, it's really difficult to actually touch your villagers. You know, there's so many steps here that they would have to go through in order to hit my villager line, and they're not able to do that. And now I've cleaned up this fight, I've cleaned up the units, and since we won that fight, we're going to use that to our advantage, and we're going to start expanding our economy while healing up our units. So we've got things coming in. We'll just keep making herdmen. We'll keep making Hersers. I do want to fix this up, and let's go ahead and finish this wall. Now that we've finished that fight, and you can just have your infantry do it. And we got, this is a perfect timing for this transition too. Now that we don't have a lot of action, what we're going to do is we're going to bring our goats in. We're going to transition villagers to farms. And then the second I see that we have 350 gold, I'm going to go get that town center created. We're just about there. And let's go ahead and get that town center up. So this is how we're pushing our advantage here. And we can send our infantry down because we basically have this extra time to react. We can keep a few units here, the ones that I left before. And we've got time to react to this. We'll get our upgrades. And now that we're getting close to breaking out of our tree line, let's get villagers down to farms. And we actually even have the chickens still. So I'm going to go ahead and put these guys on chickens. Get a couple more farms out. And now we can put villagers on goats and transition to farms whenever we have time. Keep everyone building town centers. And I'll bring a guy out here. We'll get the goats. We'll bring these back. We can do the same thing here. And now that we've got another wall that we need to secure, let's just go and do some houses. We need some houses. We'll get a gate. Secured. This is part of our base now. And we can just keep pumping out. You can see I'm pumping out a lot of units. I don't know why these guys stopped, but we're getting a lot of units here. I'm going to get the gold upgrade. We can get some more dwarfs out here, because we do, you know, once we get some gold inside of the bank. But you can see we don't need a ton of gold. We've got a big army. I'm even going to bring these villagers down. And let's go ahead and kill the rhino. And these guys can go take that on. We'll get more food. And now, at this point in the game, I think we've hit the point where this build order has gotten across what the goals are. So let's go ahead and end it here. You can see the score difference. You can see the security of my base. You can see, Jay and Jacob, why I think the relic that gives you 3x house hit points is actually quite valuable, because, you know, that's going up from 400 to 1200. You compare that to a wall, it's only 600, so suddenly your walls are twice as strong, as opposed to the relic that makes your walls 20% stronger. So I do think it's actually quite valuable. You're going to need to build these out anyways, and we've got a nice base here. So let me go ahead and resign so we can see the map. So what we were working with. And that's why I like this on this map, because how it works is you've got your main base pretty defensible, and really this is less defensible than I've gotten on most of these maps. Usually this other wood line is bigger. Let's look at our opponent's base. Theirs is also quite open, so I think it's just the generation of this map. But at least towards your opponent, you already have pretty solid fortifications built. And with Norse houses, the Dwarven Mine, you know, your production buildings, you can just keep that going and just moving out to different town centers, and your economy is going to be booming behind this. And you can see there was only one point there right at the very end when I started spamming a ton of units that I even started to run out of gold. You really get enough just from the Dwarven Mine getting out onto gold. And this is another point that I could call out. If I was getting pressured very heavily here and I couldn't hold this position for this gold mine, I could fall back to casting another Dwarven gold mine. I have the favor for it. I absolutely can do that. It's not like I'm going to be massing trolls, although I do want to try this. I want to see what 5 or 6 trolls do to an infantry line. I am curious to see, but we're not going to be massing those. We're basically just getting the upgrades with our favors, so we can use it for that Dwarven mine. But we were able to secure this one, and you could see it wasn't really even close in that fight, in that engagement they had. And our opponent, this is all the army they had back up. We'd easily take care of this army. They did just get to 2 TC, but it looks like they just built it because they don't have any villagers out here. And I don't know if we can see the villager count. Maybe we can in the post game here. Let's look at civilian units. Yeah, I guess Greek does start with 1 more, so I am behind by 1 at the start, right? Because they get 4, but then you can see it flip as I'm getting those upgrades without an extra town center. Even though we're both auto-queued here, you do surpass them. You get that bonus up, and then you can see when I got my town center and I started accelerating even further, but you do get that econ lead, you do get the additional gold gathering. So I think it's really strong. And let's go ahead and just, now that we've reached the end of the video, I'll pull up the build order again. If anyone wanted to look back at it, get a question or anything answered on that, get a screenshot. And the only other thing that I want to talk about here is I wanted to look at AOM.gg and talk about where I think Thor stands today and where he's going to be. So a couple different things to look at. You know, right here, we're looking at God matchups, all ELO. This is all the games that have happened. You can see Thor's win rates are quite low. If we look at higher ranked games, there is a shift that happens here. So Thor actually has a positive win rate in most matchups. So which matchups are hard? Well, really strong early aggression is difficult for Thor to handle. You know, you saw how we handled it, but if you're going to lose the Thor game, that's how you're going to lose it. So civs like Loki, like Odin, it makes sense. You know, and then Isis, I think it just, you know, it booms harder than Thor. So you can see why that matchup is tough. And then I think Kronos probably not enough play rate here to really take stock in, but those are the toughest matchups. And even the ones that are close, you can see Hades, Poseidon, like these are pretty close matchups at higher elo. And then there's some winning matchups, again, with not a ton of sample size. But what I think is interesting is when you look at the play rates, the civs today that Thor has the worst matchup against are the most popular because they're the strongest and easiest. And that's where we are inside of the metagame for this game, since we're early on, is civs like Hades, like Poseidon, like Odin, like Loki are played more than others, you know, like Isis. So it's really these current meta top picks are the hardest for Thor to handle. And what we can expect is that these will not be the top picks forever. And if these civs get nerfed, but the play rates, you know, the play rates will lag a bit, people will keep playing them even after a nerf. I think Thor is going to start popping up in the meta as a much stronger god because his matchups are going to be better. I do think he's probably a better team game Norse pick than the typical Norse picks, just because you do have more of a booming economy and you do have the safety of that dwarven mine to keep pumping out gold. But I do think it's interesting to look at and see where Thor sits, what matchups he struggles with, where he's successful. And I'm excited to see, where I can go with this god. I do plan on playing him on certain maps. If we do just leave this and take a quick look at some of the map pools inside of here, I'll just call out a couple maps that I've played Thor on that I've been successful on. We can just take a quick look at that. So we just played on Giza. I think that's a really good Thor map. Alfheim also pretty good, pretty defensible base. Acropolis pretty good, pretty defensible base. Where I would not look to play Thor is incredibly open maps. If you get matched up in Gold Rush, that could be difficult to get a base out inside of the gold. I don't know how Thor does on water maps. I'll be honest, I haven't played enough of it, so I wouldn't recommend for Anatolia or Black Sea or anything like that. I wish there was a way to filter just on the ranked map pool. I can recognize a few. Watering Hole is an interesting one for Thor. Pretty defensible base. You could really set up the walls to stop enemies from getting through, but of course you got to worry about ships the whole time. So that's what I'd be looking for inside of Thor maps, is look for areas where you can get that infrastructure up and defend your economy completely. Because if you can defend your economy, you're going to be in a great position. And I think that brings us to the end of the video. I've rambled enough. This is my second time through. I think I need a drink of water. So thank you everyone for watching. Let me know any thoughts or feedbacks in the comments of the video, and I will see you in the next one.